crafty friends, it's Jess from jesscrafts.com, and today I'm here to share a video with a galaxy background as part of the Gerda Steiner Designs new release blog hop. She's releasing 2 new space stamp sets, and I'm going to be showing you one of them today, but focusing the tutorial on the space background since it will suit both of the stamp sets really well. And so this is part of a blog hop, which means that there is a very exciting chance to win and a lot of inspiration. So in the video description, I will leave you a link to my blog post where you can join in on the hop and enter for your chance to win. I am stamping down the spaceships from the set in My Favorite Things Black Licorice Hybrid ink because I will be doing some Copic coloring. Then I am going to mask off the bottom of the spaceship because I want it to appear like the aliens are inside of the spaceship. I like that the aliens were included separately so you could create cute scenes with them or put them in the spaceship the way that you want them rather than having them already in the spaceship. I think that Gerda does a great job of thinking about the card makers who are using the stamp sets in the different ways we'd want to and giving us lots of options. Like for example, the aliens don't always have the mouths because the mouths are separate, and therefore you could add what expression you like to them, or you could choose to have no mouth or a couple of mouths, make some fun aliens the way that you want them or the way you picture them. I'm using inkadinkado stamping mask paper. However, a post-it note, post-it paper, or even just a regular sheet of paper would work here because you're just trying to cover up the bottom of the spaceship very temporarily. You're not doing any blending over it. So I like the mask paper because then I just take that little mask and stick it right on my stamp set and I have it for next time and save myself some time in the future. To color these spaceships, I'm going to be using the C markers. I find that the cool grays are best for giving you the look of metal. So I started with the C3, blended out with the C1, and then I wanted the bottom of the spaceship to look a little bit darker, so I started with the C5, blended out with the C3. I'm keeping all of the blending and coloring pretty simple because the background is actually kind of going to be a little bit more the star of the show today. And also when coloring the alien, I wanted to keep it simple because I'm going to be completely covering this background with glossy accents. I want the top of the spaceship to appear like it's glass, and so the easiest way to do that, in my opinion, is with the glossy accents. However, it takes a long time to dry. When I first made this card, I made it for a friend of mine, and I kind of got the inspiration the day of, and so it was basically still wet when I went to leave for the party. So you want to definitely factor that in and plan your card a little bit ahead of time for sure. So I'm using V22 and 25 to color the monster again, or the alien, just keeping it really simple, adding some shadows to make him appear rounded by putting the darker colors off to the side there. And in the back of the glass area, I did add a little bit of C1 just so that it wouldn't be completely white and again would add to the depth. So by putting the gray along the edges and leaving it more white in the center, it gives that little bit of a rounded look. I'm going to trim this out with my scissors, and I use non-stick scissors for everything just because I don't want the adhesive to catch on my scissors. And then I am going to be tracing around it with a black marker. This is the Memento Tuxedo black marker, but anything with a brush tip will work great. And that just sort of gives it a finished edge because you want to, when you fussy cut out the stamp, sometimes you see a little bit of the white cardstock through it. Then I'm adding the glossy accents. When you add the glossy accents over a large surface like this, you want to go slow. This part of the video is sped up quite a bit because Copic coloring and this sort of thing does take a long time. However, I am going really slow. I don't want air bubbles, and I want to make sure it's completely covered. Now I'm ready to move on to the space background. I am using Canson 140-pound cold press watercolor paper and distress inks. I am using picked raspberry, fossilized amber, chipped sapphire, black soot, and wilted violet. I arranged them all around my craft desk, and I have a separate foam blender for each of the colors, but I only have a handful of the ink tools. I find that 4 is usually about the amount that I use at one time, and they're relatively inexpensive to get. To create this space background, there are a lot of tutorials out there, and so I don't want to bore you too much. I'm sure you've seen some of them before, but you can choose whatever colors you like for the background. I see some people try to focus in on the purples. Other people like to add the yellows. I kind of like the combination of everything, so that's why I did a pink, a yellow, and a purple. And basically what you want to do is create a little bit of each of those colors in the background. You're going to cover most of it up with the chip sapphire and the black soot. You just want these colors sort of peeking through a little bit. And if you find that they're not intense enough, you can layer them back over it. Distress inks can be layered ad nauseum as many times as you want over each other. And as I do recommend drying in between, because if you have some wet chip sapphire and try to go back with the picked raspberry, you are probably just going to spread around the chip sapphire. So if you want to layer on some more colors, you feel like you kind of brought down the yellows or pinks too much, my recommendation is to just dry it and then add it back on top. But I'm basically pulling in the chip sapphire and the black soot from the edges into the center, but leaving a clear pink and yellow area for that look of the galaxy in the center. And the thing again about distress inks is you can sort of continuously layer, and so I don't catch it all on video, but I do see what you see here, like come back a little bit with that yellow. I want to make sure there's still some brightness to it, and you know, just play with it till you get it how you like it. And then I actually completely dried the background because I wanted to make sure that I liked the colors before I did any of the layering on top. I've seen a lot of different ways to add the stars in the background. People using watercolor paints or water, perfect pearls, all kinds of stuff. So what I decided to do was start with the water. I personally really like the Distress sprayer because you can get two different effects with it. You can get a really controlled spray by putting the close option on it, because it's like there's like a lock where it doesn't let out the water and you can't fully spray it. So if you lock it and then squeeze the trigger, just a little bit of water dribbles out. And that's what I liked for my background. You could create the spray to get a much more fine mist, or you could get larger water droplets by sort of just flicking or dropping the water down. For the background, I really wanted to do the Perfect Pearls spray. I've seen a lot of people just sort of use a metallic watercolor or metallic spray to just splash drops of metallic on it. However, I wanted my background to really shine and sparkle the whole way. And so I just sprayed the entire thing with Perfect Pearls. And I think that that really gave the look of very, very tiny stars. I've seen people do really large stars too. So it's kind of, again, it's all a matter of what you like with this background. Again, there are plenty of tutorials out there. So whatever, you know, go through a few of them and see which combinations you like best. Then to add a little bit more of a white star look, I used some gesso, but white paint would work just as well. And again, mixed it with water because the paint's really heavy and you have a hard time splattering really heavy paint with a paintbrush. And what I found is that I needed to use a separate paintbrush to mix and then a different one to flick, because the one that I mixed with was like really saturated with paint and was therefore not flicking very well. I do think that the Distress, sorry, I don't know quite the name of it, but there's like a Distress tool that is meant to flick paint. The splatter tool, I think is what he calls it. And I'm really tempted to try one of those because I do love the look of splatters, and it's supposed to give you a little bit more random, consistent look of splatters. And I would like that sometimes because often I am just like getting paint all over my desk. There is still paint in areas around my desk a few days later after doing this technique, because it just kind of goes everywhere when you're using the brush and the flicking on your finger technique. I am working on a grid surface background just to keep it nice bright white for the video, but when I'm doing some of these messy techniques, I find just a clear plastic sheet to put over it is enough. You don't even necessarily need the Ranger Craft sheet. However, if you're applying heat, that will warp it. If you apply heat to just any sort of plastic surface, it will warp. But if you're just trying to kind of keep paint off of things, any sort of plastic, laminated cardstock will work. So I wanted to add my sentiment in white. There's a lot of fun, punny sentiments in these stamp sets, and the one I'm using today is called or it says take us to your cake instead of take us to your leader, which I thought was really funny. And so I'm going to stamp it with Versamark clear sticky ink and white heat emboss it. Here I'm using the Hero Arts white embossing powder. I tried a couple different white embossing powders and the Hero Arts is my favorite personally. I did trim up that galaxy background and I mounted it on some black cardstock and then onto a card base, so that's already done here. And I'm trying not to let the card base warp too much since it's already attached, and one of the ways that I prevent that is by heating on both sides or just waiting till your heat gun is really hot before you apply it to the paper. Then my aliens and their glossy accents are all dry. I'm going to lay one flat by adhering it right to the paper and one with a little bit of dimension by putting it up on some foam tape. And that is going to be it for my card today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in more crafting tutorials, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below. If you are interested in a chance to win a gift certificate to Gerda Steiner Designs, be sure to follow the link to my blog and join us on the blog hop and check out her stamps as well. I will leave links to the products in the video description below. Thanks for watching. Bye.